Adam Smith by Video-Locke.
Adam Smith was a Scottish philosopher and economist, and is known as the father of modern economics and capitalism. The date of Smith's birth is unknown, but he was baptised in Kirkcaldy, Scotland in 1723. He attended one of the best schools in Scotland and entered the University of Glasgow when he was just 14 years old. In 1740 he left for Oxford University under a full scholarship, but left in 1746 before his scholarship had finished, and he returned to Kirkcaldy. He began publicly lecturing in 1748, which led to him being appointed Professor of Logic and Moral Philosophy in 1752, and he remained in Glasgow for the next 13 years. He left Glasgow in 1764 to travel on the continent as tutor to the future Duke of Buccleuch, Henry. He met many influential and intellectual Europeans on this trip, including Jean-Jacques Rousseau and Voltaire. He published his famous work, Inquiry into the Nature and Causes of the Wealth of Nations. Smith argued against the regulations of commerce and trade. This work was the precursor to the modern academic discipline of economics, and is one of the most influential texts on economics ever written. In The Wealth of Nations and other works, he wrote about how self-interest and competition led to economic prosperity, giving foundation to the principles of capitalism. He became one of the founding members of the Royal Society of Edinburgh in 1783, but died in the city in 1790.
Who was Adam Smith? Smith was an economist and moral philosopher. He believed in a laissez-faire economy. His works earned him the name of Father of Economics. Smith wrote the very revolutionary An Inquiry into the Nature and Causes of the Wealth of Nations. When and where? He spent most of his life in Scotland reading, writing, and teaching. In 1764 Smith went to France, and that's when he began to form the beginnings of his book The Wealth of Nations. In 1790 he died of a painful illness, but his economic theories have continued to influence people throughout the 20th century and now even into the 21st century. What was his contribution to the Industrial Revolution? In 1759 Smith gained prestige and a considerable reputation when he published a book called The Theory of Moral Sentiments. It examined moral approval and disapproval. Then in 1776 he published his most famous book, The Wealth of Nations. The book was used for the development of the economy in England. His ideals also influenced the development of other economies all over the world. What was his contribution to the Industrial Revolution? The Wealth of Nations consisted of 5 separate books and a total of 900 pages. Smith wrote The Wealth of Nations, which was known as a living picture of the economic circumstances of England at that current time. In the books he emphasized the theme of labor as a source for all value, meaning that the value of a good or service is determined by the amount of labor put into making that product. Smith borrowed his ideas from many other philosophers. The Wealth of Nations mentions over 100 names. Contribution to the Industrial Revolution. In his works he did not promote any social class or advocated any ideology. He touches base on competition and self-interest a lot in The Wealth of Nations. Smith supported the consumer. The Wealth of Nations exerted greater influence in the systematization and development of economic theory than any other single work, and its influence still lives on today. Why is he so important to the Industrial Revolution? The Wealth of Nations was thought of as the Bible of capitalism. Smith helped to organize the thoughts and ideas about the economics of capitalism. He still has an influence on economics in the 20th and 21st century. He made sure the whole society was content, using his theory of an invisible hand in economics.
"60-second adventures in economics. Number 1, the invisible hand. An economy is a tricky thing to control, and governments are always trying to figure out how to do it. Back in 1776, economist Adam Smith shocked everyone by saying that what governments should actually do is just leave people alone to buy and sell freely among themselves. He suggested that if they just leave self-interested traders to compete with one another, markets are guided to positive outcomes as if by an invisible hand. If someone charges less than you, customers will buy from them instead, so you have to lower the price or offer something better. Whenever enough people demand something, they will be supplied by the market, like spoilt children, only in this case everyone's happy. Later free marketeers, like Austrian economist Friedrich Hayek, argued that this hands-off approach actually works better than any kind of central plan. But the problem is economies can take a long time to reach their equilibrium and may even stall along the way. And in the meantime, people can get a little frustrated, which is why governments usually end up taking things into their own more visible hands instead.